Hello people, Ancient Gameplays, I'm Fabio Pisco, and today we have a special episode and we are featuring Adam Kozak, Director of Product Marketing at AMD. And first of all, I want to thank you, Adam, for being present here. And I want you to tell me, or tell us, the viewers, what is your current position at AMD and what you did before that at AMD and maybe outside of AMD.
Sure. Well, first of all, hi Fabio. Thank you very much for having me. I've been at AMD for over 20 years, and right now I'm the Director of Product Marketing for consumer graphics and gaming. So that's Ryzen and Radeon. It's a pretty cool job. I've worked everywhere from the GPU side, CPU only chipset. I've done competitive analysis, but you know what? It's one of the most fun jobs I've ever had. I've worked at a telecommunications company before. I've worked at a digital video company before, but working at AMD has really been the most fun of my career for sure.
That's great. It means that you were actually able to evolve, kind of grow in the company, and I believe that's one of the things that everyone wants to when they join some company to grow.
That's the dream, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To be able to be at a company for a long time that you really like.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, you were talking about the chipset part. So you just worked on the chipset part just independently, like when we had those VIA chipsets and Intel chipsets on AMD motherboards?
Exactly. So I actually started at ATI, and we got acquired by AMD, and ATI would make the graphics chips. And at the time, chipsets were separate, and you would integrate your graphics into the chipset before they were integrated into the processors. So I was a product manager for a few generations of chipsets while at ATI.
Yeah, that's great. Well, the first cards that I got, they were obviously ATI. They were not AMD. I'm not that young. And yeah, I remember having and buying lots of motherboards that used via chipsets, and even I believe it was Intel or Nvidia chipsets back in the day. It was interesting. I remember that the VIA chipsets, they were actually, well, subpar compared to the other ones, but they were also much cheaper. So can't complain,
exactly.
I guess.
Yeah, right.
And if you want to help the channel even further, just lay an eye on today's sponsor. Today's video sponsor is GVG Mall, bringing you lots of software deals like Windows 10, Windows 11, Office 2019 or 2021 with a new Windows 11 design. And for all of these, you can use my SKG discount code for 30% off, getting a Windows 11 serial key for $22 and a Windows 10 one for only $15. Then use the key on your Windows settings and you'll have an activated system. Can't complain,
exactly.
I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah, when you start off, sometimes you have to buy whatever's cheaper, and it's not always the best. But over generations, you build up your career, and you're able to get some of the cooler products. I mean, my first graphics card was a low-end ATI card as well. But over the years, I've upgraded into the 7 series, and now I'm actually into the upper 9070 series.
Yeah, I mean, if you want me to talk about it a bit, I mean, you are the one getting interviewed, but I can speak of my experience as well. My first card was, I believe, the first computer that I bought myself without my parents buying it was like when I was 19, something like that, and I believe it was the Radeon HD 4550 or something like that, or no, 5450, something like that, really low end, and I was like,
oh, wow.
I was like blown away. I was like, yeah, it's my first computer, that's so great. It cost me like every part chosen just like that, nitpicking every part, and it was like 200 euros or something like that, the whole build. so yeah, we all start somewhere.
That's a really good deal.
Yeah, with an Athlon, yeah. So yeah. So I guess we can go to the first question, which is, Adam, I'm pretty sure most people know about you and your work, of course, even more since we talked about it before, and we are not entirely connected to the Adrenalin Software part, but still I wanted to make this question. I believe that the Adrenalin Software is currently in one of the best positions it ever been in the market, at least for the past decade, I would say, in terms of stability and features. So what is the next step? Will AMD follow NVIDIA's ideas, or will you guys bring new interesting features to the market? Because everyone is saying this all the time. Well, someone does it, everyone else copies it. So
I think that's a fair statement. I think, first of all, I want to say that I want to think that Radiance Software has been really strong over the last few years. In fact, I think it's shown some leadership in terms of features. We've seen the competition copy us in a lot of ways. I mean, we're the first with driver upscaling, frame generation with like AFMF, and the fact that the UI has been copied by the competition only just a couple of years ago. It's been a long time where we've actually had leadership. You got performance metrics. I do a lot of my streaming from the software itself. I really think that from a software point of view, AMD is actually the leader in that segment.
yeah, I mean, I believe that some people just tend to forget about the things that AMD brought first. For example, when we're talking about resizable bar, AMD brought it first.
Yep.
Smart access memory, it was AMD bringing it first. The same thing for smart access video. And again, the software features that were then kind of mimicked by NVIDIA. AFMF, exactly, RSR, Radiance Super Resolution. Image sharpening as well, but image sharpening was, well, it's kind of different from what AMD offers with NIS. But yeah, there are some things that I believe AMD brought first. But I mean,
there's a lot more stuff coming. I really can't talk about some of the cool things we've got coming down the line, but I will say that the software team is always innovating on cool new features. And if you buy a Radiant card, you're gonna get access to some of these cool features. Even in the next few months, you'll see some cool stuff coming out.
Yeah, that's great news actually, and of course I tested some of the modded version of the drivers with some AFMF3 inputs and so on.
Yep.
And we get a bit of what's coming, of course, just a bit of it at least. But when I was talking about the software itself, I'm not talking about the Radeon or the Adrenalin Software app itself, because on that regard, yes, I do believe that AMD is in front of the competition in several scenarios. I'm talking mostly about the things that people say that matter, like when we're talking about FSR, when we're talking about ray reconstruction or ray regeneration and so on. Things that we have to put inside the games. And I believe that's what people talk about most. But now, since FSR4 is out and is actually pretty good, do you think this still applies or not really?
I think it still applies. Some of the features that you were mentioning will be game integrated, so it's not really a driver feature. But we are looking to create a simpler interface and add cool new features that are very easy to recognize. I think you'll see that coming in the next while as well. And obviously, you mentioned FSR4 being in the driver. There's going to be some evolution there as well.
AFMF.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with FSR4 and so on.
Beyond what you're even seeing today.
Yeah, that's great. And immediately when I saw that thing about the inputs, I thought, this is brilliant. This is really, really good idea. I mean, if we are injecting one thing through the software, why not picking the inputs from it as well? That's just great. I thought of it immediately. Brilliant, actually. Great job. Now I believe we can follow to the third question, which is still on the software side of things. We know that AMD will keep improving FSR4 and of course FSR 3.1 at the same time, I suppose. Don't really know since we now have the Int 8 version anyway, at least for a while. And with all these leaks about the Int 8 version of FSR4 that works with RDNA 3 and RDNA 2 as well, even some models of RDNA 1 like the RX 5500 XT that was released later, would this be the so-called FSR 3.5, or will AMD just call it FSR4 Lite or just FSR4? They will mix the names, they will mix the versions. What will happen exactly?
Well, I think that's a smart question, but obviously we can't comment on rumors. I thought it was brilliant how the community just took something and made it work out there for different cards. Internally, the team's always exploring different things. I would say we're really focused on the ML enhancements, particularly around FSR Redstone. That's where most of the resources are. But what comes down in the future, you can definitely think that we're always exploring different ways. There are some benefits for the integer 8 version, but usually when you're doing image reconstruction, floating point's a lot higher quality. So I think that still needs to evolve a bit, but you also see examples from Microsoft using the NPU for reconstructing some super resolution as well. So there's different things being researched, and just stay tuned for more on that.
That's great, actually. That's one of the questions that I made before to myself, of course. Why not use the NPU? I mean, if more and more CPUs are coming with the NPU, why not use it? Why just having it there and not use it for something actually related to gaming? And that's what I thought. Well, maybe due to latency, it can bring some challenges, but it could be done there. So yeah.
Yeah, if you give engineers a problem, they're usually pretty smart in figuring it out. So there's a lot of research and development going on that side. But again, I'd say our main focus right now is really improving FSR to the best possible quality level. That's with ML, with FP8, and a lot of the future news is really going to be focused on that.
Okay. And just since you are the marketing, let's say, in terms of marketing itself, do you really think it, and again, I'm just asking for an opinion, if you can actually give it, it's fine. What do you think should be done? So if the int 8 version gets really close to the FP8, should we call it just FSR4, or should it have a different name since it is actually a different model? Like, for example, XeSS, they just call it XeSS in all case scenarios, even though it's not really the same in between the int.
Obviously, that's going to be something that we'll have to figure out. From my personal, as a gamer, I want to have something that's very simple to understand. And my outlook going forward for the team has been simplify, simplify, simplify. So my personal opinion is I would like to simplify everything as much as possible, but we'll cross that when we get down to that path.
Yeah, I mean, since we're talking about the software, I believe that it could be done in a simple way, like just giving access to the older users, but then on the exclamation point, you can just go there and it will tell you that, okay, this is just for the older cards. So be noticed that it will be using int 8 models, which will be slightly inferior to the FP8 or something like that. Just, or the older cards will have slightly lower image quality with FSR4, something like that. I mean, it could be done because people already know about it. So
yep,
it wouldn't be an issue, I guess.
There's different ways to go about it for sure, and that's an interesting answer for it.
Okay, as for the fourth question, we have now that there have been some issues with games in specific, like Delta Force, that was fixed later, I believe, or at least not entirely, but at least mostly fixed. Now, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 in the Verdansk map, this is still an issue, I confirmed it. And again, what happens is that some users were experiencing things and found that the stutters could be avoided by disabling smart access memory. So you go into the map, in the Verdansk map, Call of Duty, you have an RX 7000 series, you go into the map, I experienced it, it just plays fine, after some time, stutter here, stutter there, and it's really annoying. For me, not that much, but for people that play the game competitively, yeah, it will be really annoying, and they found that disabling smart access memory actually fixes the issue, which means that it has something to do with smart access memory profile for that game. It could be fixed, and it hasn't been fixed for quite a long time. My question is, wouldn't it be beneficial to enable smart access memory toggle, sorry, Portuguese was taking over, on a per game basis like we have in many other features, so that users could kind of troubleshoot the issues themselves?
Are you seeing this still today? This problem with Radiance? Because I'm not seeing
Yeah,
that.
yeah. If because you're using a 9070 XT and it doesn't really happen with a 9000 series, I believe it's related to the 7000 series only. I don't really know why it didn't happen before. It doesn't really happen in all maps, I believe. It just happens on that specific map because I tested in other maps and so on. It just isn't there. So it's specific to that season of Call of Duty. I don't really play the game that much, so I don't really know more details.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm not a so I first of all I'd say I'm not a Call of Duty multiplayer person. My reaction times are not as good as they used to be, but I would definitely ask users if they see something, use the bug reporting tool immediately. That gets to the engineers and it allows them to look at something like that. Whether or not we can disable SAM, that's I think baked into the driver right now. So you would have to manually do that via the BIOS if you wanted to get rid of rebar. But that's really the only way to do it today.
Yeah, but I don't really know if you remember, but we had actually a button, a toggle on the Adrenalin software before where we could disable it
Yeah,
or enable it.
it's been removed just based on the differences in hardware in RDNA4. So in RDNA4, there's a hardware level
Yeah, it
feature
needs rebar.
that doesn't require this on-off. And
Oh,
one of the things
okay.
in software you'll learn is that if you can just have one way of doing things, it saves you from QAing a lot of different options. So we try to streamline our software, and that's one of the things that fell out of that. So um, it would have to be a driver side fix, and I would ask the team. I can ask the team after this just to double check because, like I said, I haven't seen this problem, but you could be right. It's because I've been using a 9070 series.
Yeah, and I mean, even if AMD couldn't do something like this, like just mess around with the drivers, maybe they could have something like NVIDIA has. I don't really think NVIDIA does this. It's kind of something that someone else did, which is the NVIDIA Profile Inspector, and you can go each game and change the settings like rebar and so on. Maybe something like that could be done. Just a little software, just really simple, where we could access the smart access memory profiles, disable them
I
or not.
think that's a decent idea. Add it to the profiles because one of the cool things about the Adrenalin software is it kind of gives you a game library, and you can change the features per game within it. And it's something I can go back to the team and figure out if
Yeah,
that's feasible or not.
yeah, that's one of the things that
For
I
sure.
thought, and yeah, having it game by game would be nice, of course, just to avoid these issues because this is a thing that has been happening for quite some months, and this is actually, I believe this is actually bad for AMD because if they actually had the option to just shut down the smart access memory profile on that specific game, people would just do it and they would just forget about it because okay, it's working now. Otherwise, they will go to the internet just blaming this or that. It isn't fixed. So I believe that it affects the view of the players upon AMD's trademark, and they will or not, they cannot find their peace, their inner peace, and their next GPU will most likely not be an NVIDIA AMD one. Sorry, so it can be done if
I'll
it
look
will.
into it. I'll look into it after this, definitely.
Yeah, thank you. So as for the fifth question we have, I also wanted to talk about ROCm 7, and in the meantime, ROCm 7 was released, at least a part
Hmm.
of it, and ROCm 6.4.4 native support for Windows. And this is really interesting thing for people that want to use productivity apps at the maximum performance right out of the box. Of course, we know that. And from what I understand, ROCm 7 is mostly focusing on native support for AI apps, and we already have some of that with the 6.4.4 and we already have that with the preview drivers for PyTorch with some LLM support and so on. With my question being, will other apps like Premiere and Blender benefit from this update as well, or will it come later in a driver package as well?
Yeah,
So,
this
do
is
we
a
need
pretty good
implementation?
question. Um, yes and no. So, first of all, ROCm brings GPU acceleration across a wide array of models. It's not just LLMs, and there's been a lot of development happening on the ROCm side to the point where we're getting releases sometimes several times a month. And we've got different platforms right now that are kind of merging all into one, and that'll be the end goal, where every time we release a driver, every time we release ROCm, it'll just be the latest. Right now, we've got, like you mentioned, there's a 6.4 for Windows, and then you've got 7, which was released for Linux, and then you've got 7 for Radeon coming out soon. So you've got these different versions. I would say the goal really right now is for ROCm is get Windows support, nail compatibility with the popular frameworks, so PyTorch, and then gradually build in performance across the others. Now, the second thing that you were talking about there was the HIP packages. So these are really the ROCm libraries that are optimized for Windows and DirectML, all that sort of stuff. So right now, the latest Adrenalin driver is pre-built with the latest HIP libraries. And then we also release these HIP libraries separately as an SDK. Eventually, when you download ROCm, for me, the ultimate goal would be you just download the latest and you get the latest across everywhere. So if you want, you could build ROCm 7 using what we have now is the ROC. It's like it's on GitHub. You can build these libraries yourself and use the latest HIP libraries there to accelerate those apps. But I would stick to the versions that we're bundling right now in the drivers, because those are usually tested and tuned for those apps that you're using, like Premiere Pro and Blender.
Yeah, I mean, Blender is one of the, I would say, one of the software tools that AMD has been behind at for quite some time. And I believe that's mostly due to optimization as well. Of course, there are hardware scenarios and there are hardware specifications that make it be slower or faster in some case scenarios. It is what it is. The architecture is different, of course. And even the Blender software itself, it is kind of built more proning to one side than the other, of course. That's how the industry works. But yeah, I believe there have been made some improvements have been made definitely on that regard, and I believe that you can't really tell us, but I believe that the 9000 series, at least the 9000 series, will have more improvements in that regard, I would suppose, regarding Blender, regarding...
Correct. Well, ROCm 7 actually is it works across the 7000 and 9000 series, so I would expect any enhancements to also come to both of those generations of cards.
Yeah, and Windows.
In Windows, yep. Yeah, trust me, Windows is the one that I've been working with the team on, and we've got some exciting things coming over the next few months. But yeah, that's the biggest room to grow right now.
And well, I just wanted to take like a minute from you and just wanted to show you this mouse from Keychron, which is the Keychron M5 wireless mouse with up to 30,000 dpi, of course, and all those things like launcher with web configuration, battery life up to 140 hours, and this is actually one of the great things here, and it is a vertical mouse. I would say that you want a vertical mouse when we're talking about, well, wrist strain or wrist pain at all, because with a vertical mouse, as you can see, you just move the mouse like this. So instead of your wrist being like this, which is the usual for the normal mice, but I mean, as soon as you do this, it is immediately getting you some strain here on this side, and as soon as you do this movement, it feels much more natural, and that's why the vertical mice are actually a thing, because it creates a much more natural movement. And I won't lie, because it takes some time to get used to, it does, but as soon as you get used to it, especially for FPS shooters, I would say, for normal scenarios, for normal working scenarios, it doesn't really make a huge difference for me. But in terms of shooters and so on, it is really nice to use. And again, the strain on the wrist is much lower. With this mouse, you have several options. You have wireless connection, Bluetooth connection, and this mouse again is the Keychron M5. This is not sponsored, I'm not getting any money for this, just letting you know of the mouse because they sent me the mouse, and it really is cool. It's the first vertical mouse that I tested. It just feels natural to move the wrist like this instead of being like this, at least again for shooters. If you're looking for a vertical mouse or if you're looking to improve your wrist training, I believe that the Keychron M5 can be what you need. Again, vertical mouse, Bluetooth, wireless, 30,000 DPI, 8K polling rate, and vertical, which is great.
Yeah, trust me, Windows is the one that I've been working with the team on, and we've got some exciting things coming over the next few months. But yeah, that's the biggest room to grow right now.
So let's move to another question now regarding the injection of FSR4 into FSR 3.1 games via Adrenalin, of course. I used OptiScaler several times before in games that have FSR2 like Dead Island 2, of course, and the upscaling quality increased a lot even when using FSR2 API, which of course isn't as great as FSR 3.1. But it is possible to inject FSR4 using FSR2 inputs. So why doesn't AMD do it? It has something to do with the inputs themselves, the games. How does it work?
Well, it is definitely an interesting question. And I would say using third-party tools like this is a great way to get these benefits. Our focus right now on FSR has really been working with the developers and ensuring that their games are working properly with FSR4. And some of these games that are a little bit older, like Dead Island 2, don't really get that continued development. So you're going to need to keep using these solutions like OptiScaler to inject into them. I'm not as aware as well if that would trigger any anti-cheat as well, but I would say that the cool thing about this whole PC space is the fact that there's all these different mods out there. I would keep using OptiScaler if that's if you're looking for an FSR2 replacement.
So what I'm getting from this is that this is a question of resources. It isn't worth it. So you guys could do it, but it isn't.
No, it's more of a question of does this developer still work on this title for us to make these changes? When we make changes, we're not just doing it ourselves and that's it. We're working with the developers to make sure that what we've done is improving their title, because it's their content, it's their ownership of their IP. So a game like Dead Island 2 that's a little bit older, I mean, those teams have most likely moved on. I'm not specifically sure about Dead Island 2 as a title, but if it's using FSR2, I'm guessing most of those developers are working on something much newer. I can definitely say that if there are tools out there today that work, like OptiScaler, I would just continue using those. I wouldn't wait for an FSR2 title to get updated with FSR4. We're definitely working on looking at more games that are newer.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I made this point for a reason, and that's because before AMD actually had to whitelist the FSR 3.1 games. It meant that somehow they were working with the game developers in order to, well, let me just inject FSR4 in your game. Don't make the anti-cheat do this or that. I suppose that's the case in order to not have people banned. But since a couple of drivers ago, AMD actually, you guys just unlocked the FSR4 toggle for every single game, meaning that if the game supports FSR 3.1, it will automatically go, unless it's a different version of FSR 3.1, a modified one, but it will automatically go into FSR4. So that might mean that AMD is not working with every developer now on that regard, since it is unlocked for every single game. That's why I made the question about FSR2, so it could be done, just maybe not due to resources, it's not worth it. That's why
Yeah,
I made the
so
question.
we require FSR 3.1 for FSR4 to work. So the hooks that we use are in FSR 3.1. There is no other way for
No,
us to do
exactly.
that.
Okay, I understand. So OptiScaler does different processes, and that's why it works. Okay, so they kind of use the
Yeah,
transparency masks or something like that, and in order to make it work. Well, interesting.
I have no idea
Yeah, that's
how they do
exactly
it.
the the answer that I wanted to hear actually. So yeah. So the question is also touching this question is also touching the marketing side of things, of course, and most likely won't be answered. That's obvious. With FSR Redstone, AMD will bring Radiance caching, of course, ray regeneration and machine learning frame generation to AMD users. And as for the machine learning frame generation, I believe it can be injected like FSR4, according to what we heard before, but I'm pretty sure that the Radiance caching and ray regeneration need to be implemented inside the game. So, with this being said, is AMD now working closer than ever to the game studios to make sure that they implement the newest AMD tech? And if so, which will be the first game? Which game will be the first one to actually have these features?
Well, I can answer some of your questions there.
That's great already.
First of all, I think you've got the correct understanding. So a couple of those features like FSR ray regeneration, FSR radiance caching, those need to be done by the developer. And we are working with developers on integrating that into their pipelines. And then FSR frame generation, that's ML based, is something that we can also work within the driver, similar to FSR upscaling. So we are working with developers. I can't really tell you which ones will be first, but Jack's gonna to give the gamers a lot more news later, and just stay tuned for
Jack
further
Win.
details.
Jack Win?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Jack Win? Yeah. So
Win.
actually, can I
Him.
redo that one because it may not be Jack. I don't want to say who it is.
Okay. But yeah, it will
we're
be
still figuring
presented.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like you have the correct understanding on how it's all going to work. So Radiance caching, ray regeneration, those are integrated into the engine, and we are working with developers as part of the process for FSR Redstone. And then machine learning frame generation is something that can be enabled in the driver. We have to have a certain version like we did for FSR in the game, and we've been working with partners to upgrade to FSR. I
3.1.5.
believe it's point 4. They at least have to have 3.1.4. And if they have that and the model works well, you'll find out more about this very soon. I can't say what games are going to be first, but we've got a lot more information coming up for gamers very soon. And yeah, if you buy a 9000 series card, you're going to be able to have access to a lot more machine learning FSR features.
Great. And by the way, like, do you feel that the developers are more open to AMD technologies nowadays that they were, let's say, before FSR4 was released?
I I'm not on the ISV side of things, but from what I've seen, FSR has always been widely adopted. It's been one of those technologies that was very easy to integrate and gave great performance in titles where you would need it. And I really haven't seen from myself how the ISVs have responded to the different technologies. I do know that they do like how simple FSR4 adds even higher quality to their games, and it's a very easy process on their side.
Yeah, I mean, there is only one game right now that features natively, at least that I know of, that features natively FSR4, which is Dying Light: The Beast. And the second one, from what I've seen, will be Black Myth Wukong, possibly. So, yeah, I guess that things are moving slowly, but they're going into the right direction. Do you feel that?
Yeah, well, the other thing is like you don't need to ship with the latest FSR in the game because the driver will always have it. And that's one of the cool things of the way the method works today. you can bundle the latest and greatest model and version of FSR in the driver, and then it'll just enable it in your game. So that it's definitely a better system of distribution
Yeah.
than always waiting for the game to update their FSR, because it may not come as regularly as what AMD can update.
Yeah, but I mean, there would be no beneficial points for the developers to use, let's say, FSR 3.1 only, since the FSR, the Fidelity FX SDK package 2.0, it brings all of the three upscalers in the same file: 2.3.4,
Right.
3.1.5, and 4.0.2. So, I mean, that option would be better. So that's another great thing AMD did, like having the three upscalers just in one file and then having the loader. That was a nice idea as well. It's much easier to implement and just functions in every single card. That's great, actually. So as for the next question, I believe we can move on. Regarding the leaked Int8 model of FSR4, and I know that we're hammering that side of the things a bit. One of the things that always came to my mind was, and yeah, we talked about that before, why not run the upscaler technique on the NPU? And I know this is more of a technical thing, but I mean, more and more CPUs are starting to bring NPUs, so wouldn't it be possible to run the upscalers on the NPU for better performance when running a system with an AMD CPU and GPU, or are there many caveats? We've talked about that before, but I wanted to hear a bit more profoundly about that.
So I would say there's always caveats on any method that you do, and it's just weighing which method is less and gives you the better
More.
performance, the lower latency, and even power, it becomes a factor. How much power does it burn when you run it off of a different engine?
Exactly.
And all that is something that the engineering team's looking at. And there's the cool thing about this whole PC game space, and one of the reasons why I love about it is it just keeps evolving, it keeps changing. There's always new ideas and new ways of doing things. So I would say stay tuned. You're going to see some devices come out that will do one method, and you'll see possible evolutions as well in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I will be getting the Ryzen AI Max mini computer from Bilink in a couple of days. And I mean,
Ooh.
since that one has, of course, the 8060S, which is already a very powerful integrated graphics, having the possibility of using the NPU for FSR4 in that case scenario would be even better, would bring it even more value as a small gaming machine. And that's and since things are evolving so much in terms of the APU gaming performance, that's why I asked what I asked.
I get it. Yep. No, that would be interesting on that part for sure.
So as for the ninth question we have, also when talking about features, we can say that FSR4 is getting new games supported quite fast, now with over 90 games supported, but one thing that I see developers resisting to implement, and I see this a lot, is anti-lag 2. Even though in some games it is implemented automatically when you're implementing frame generation, you don't really have the option to use it without it. So, and I suppose that the marketing should be stronger regarding anti-lag 2. So shouldn't AMD just bring back anti-lag plus to the software kit and call it a day, or did AMD already scrap the idea, now focusing on what will most likely be called anti-lag 3?
Well, first of all, I'd say I agree with you as a gamer. I wish more titles featured anti-lag 2. But I've started to see a pickup. I was just playing Battlefield 6. That includes it now. Dying Light, The Beast. I think a lot more games that are competitive are including anti-lag 2. But I would say stay tuned. I think that's another area where the developer has to do a little bit more work to integrate it, and that's kind of been why we haven't seen as many titles as we would like.
I see. So it's harder to implement at the normal FSR technologies. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about FSR4 again, we have over 90 titles already, and anti-lag 2 has been around for a long time, and I mean, it's like, well, at least longer than FSR4, of course, and we have it in like 20 titles, maybe. So
Yep. I think most developers are really focused on the upscaling. It's just so easy to add the upscalers. But like I said, I think Anti-Lag 2 is picking up steam. I think you'll see a lot more titles. It's definitely something that if you're a competitive gamer, you'll want for sure.
Yeah, and I believe that Anti-Lag 2 is presented in most competitive games. That's at least I'll give you that. That's indeed a fact. So yeah, let's hope it. And just by the way, just before going to the next question, because I was talking and thinking at the same time in another entirely different thing. That's the thing that I do. Sorry about that. What about the Anti-Lag Plus? Do you really think it could be back to some extent or not really?
I don't know. I haven't really heard anything internally about that, so I don't think it is something being reconsidered. I think right now, because you don't want to trigger any of those anti-cheats, I think the best way right now is for that developer to integrate it into the games, and that's really going to be the what I would expect from them. I would also say that we're starting to see sort of like the same thing from the Reflex, and I think as soon as they do that, it makes it a lot easier for them to do anti-lag too. So they're kind of like if the developer is going to take time to implement these low latency technologies,
They will
I
do
think
for both
you'll
brands.
see more. They'll
Yeah,
do for
especially
both.
now
Yeah.
that AMD is growing. Yeah, I can
Yep.
see that. I can see that happening. The next question is, and since we're talking to the director of product marketing, I have to make this question, and I know, I know this is a bit of a tough one. Why do you think that people say things like AMD has good products but terrible marketing, especially when they're speaking of the GPU division, or AMD never misses a chance to miss a chance? Also, do you think that people's perception changed with RDNA 4? If it is still the same, I would really like to hear about it.
Well, hey, look, you and I know that the internet can say some interesting things, and you have to have a little thick skin. But I've heard this throughout like many different times in my career. And let's be honest, gamers are some of the most passionate people. I mean, it's fantastic because it's they care, and you wouldn't find too many other industries where people really care what you do. For me, it's an honor because as a gamer and as leading a team of gamers, it means we really want to do the right thing. And I look at these as opportunities to get better. So if we see something that we know we can change from at least from my team's point of view, we'll make an effort to improve. And I think RDNA 4 was a good example of what we were able to do. And I think from a whole company, RDNA 4 was a big moment for us where when you compare what's happened in the past, we've really focused on very simple messaging. And I think part of that is just based on the learnings.
Yeah, and I would actually add that I believe it all has to do with the expectations. So people are expecting something
Sure.
better or worse, and that also changes the view that they have on the presentation. But there are also some slides that, or in this case, we can say even some slides that AMD presented that are actually, well, that are actually not what they should be regarding in terms of marketing. So things that aren't entirely true, or they are just tested in scenarios that don't really show the full usage of the product, and that's where I believe people say what they say. But I also believe that in terms of marketing, most products recently, at least recently, I believe that have been quite down to earth, showing what the products can actually do. RDNA 4 was a great example of that. So people didn't have super high expectations because you guys already told people, okay, this is what it's going to be.
Mhm.
So people accepted it the way it was supposed to be, and that's fine, I guess. The same for the recent CPU launches, but there were some in between that weren't done quite correctly. So do you supervise every single one of those, or?
Yeah, so since I started this role, I would say late last year, I've been, and the team have been very focused on reproducible data that is typical use cases. We look at repeating things several times to make sure that what we are saying is proven by regular repetition. And then the big thing that from my team is just don't oversell. The products that we have right now are fantastic. Just even undersell it if you need to, but the Ryzen X3D is a fantastic gaming part. You don't need to oversell that one. Radeon 9000 series are fantastic GPUs, especially at the price points that they're at. You don't need to oversell. And that has been something that even still today I've seen from our competitors still do. But from our point of view, I think that's one of the changes that I've tried to implement. If people just try an AMD product, they'll love it.
I believe that, again, like I said before, things are much more down to earth, not something like RTX 5070 equals 4090 in terms of performance. And that's, and people still buy, and I believe that people still bought NVIDIA way more for two reasons, like productivity, or they were talking about the LSS. So the LSS sold everything. After, I would say, like from 3 years ago till now, the LSS sold basically every NVIDIA card regarding gaming. So now with FSR being much better, really almost on par, and maybe surpassing it someday, we don't really know. I believe that yeah, AMD will be much better. And if you guys keep things like down to earth, I believe that people will get to buy more and more. So yeah, at least that's my opinion as a gamer, of course. But I like to think of myself as a regular person, and nowadays there are less and less regular persons or regular people, as the time passes by. So I don't really know how the market
You're getting
will
too
react.
famous. That's why.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I'm just, as I said, I'm just a guy that loves doing what I do, and that's really good for me. Just, again, you see, I'm just a regular guy with a regular house. I mean, nothing fancy, nothing, just me asking questions to the, now we can say that, to the famous Adam Kozak.
Yeah, I don't think so, but yeah, thank you.
So now we have some questions from some of my supporters, some of my channel supporters, and the first one. And the first one, I don't really know if I will be able to pronounce this correctly, which is from Dan Diaconescu. And I know if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, just go to the comment section. Let me know. I'll try to pronounce it the correct way. So the first question, because he has 3 just for him, is: are they, AMD, working with Microsoft to make Adrenalin driver features work with all Game Pass games? There are lots of games that do not support launching, monitoring, and individual settings. Do you know anything about this in particular?
So first of all, we're always working with our partners. Microsoft is definitely a key one. We work with different publishers, but I can't really say too much at this time on any specifics, but we are aware of the issue. And yes.
Yeah, I mean, Game Pass just took a hit with the new price hikes, of course.
Yeah, I heard that.
But still, many people use it, and I mean, I guess that, I mean, it's just not about the metrics and so on. But for example, people trying to use FSR4 with some Game Pass games, it just doesn't work. I don't know if it has to do with the hooks or something, but most likely that's the case, right?
So yeah, like obviously we're aware of this, and we are working with Microsoft, and we work with other partners on all their titles. So we are working, but I can't really say any specifics on this one.
Okay. So the second one is: if it is not too late, could we get a microphone real-time noise suppression solution that actually works? NVIDIA did it just for CUDA and so on. So basically what he's asking, I don't really need to go to the full question here, because this is not actually your area. But do you think it could be done? Not really, just improving noise suppression at all in terms of audio, because AMD already has that feature. So it is really worth it to improve it, or AMD is focusing on other things like FSR, Redstone, and so on.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the noise suppression side of things. From my point of view as a gamer, I actually like using applications, separate applications, if they specialize in something, than when it comes to streaming and recording. So I'm not really aware of what's
Yeah.
happening on that sort side of things.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just kind of improving it because there are some applications that don't really work with it, I suppose, like some Discord things. But yeah, I know that's not really your expertise, so you won't really be able to answer. These questions were made kind of in a general purpose. So
Okay.
yeah, I believe people think that you might know everything about everyone, but that's not the case. That's not how things work.
Yeah, I can take this feedback and share it with the internal teams.
Okay, and by the way, if you're watching, sorry then for not reading the full question, but I will read the third question, which is with Linux home desktop on the rise, will Linux receive some more love from AMD? I know AMD is king on the Penguin OS, but things like official stable drivers, not just Mesa, a GUI tool would be nice. Something better than the open source LACT module, things like that would be great. Quality of life features for Linux noobs. Parity of the useful sorry driver features on Windows. So basically having Adrenalin software on Linux.
I think that's a great question, and you're right. Like people are using Linux a lot more for gaming than ever. But I'd say one of the advantages of our approach is that A, we open source our drivers, and B, the community's been able to build and optimize on them pretty quickly too. So our driver stack gets benefits from kind of a lot more people working on it, and you get faster updates this way. Um, I mean, our official Linux support today looks different than on Windows because just the size of that Windows environment is so much
Yeah.
bigger. But I would say that the idea of having these open source models and the way we're doing things right now just really allows us to ensure that users are getting stable and high performance drivers that are evolving as fast as Linux evolves.
Yeah, and I believe that a couple of weeks ago we had AMD merging the drivers, the Vulkan drivers, with the Mesa ones or something like that. Will that affect something? Do you know if that will bring different things? More, I
I
don't know.
don't know, but you can kind of get the hint that we are definitely working on Linux drivers. It's just not at the same scale as Windows because Windows is such a bigger environment.
Of
But
course.
again, that this whole open source, like we even saw with that int 8 model, just having people go out and do things themselves is a fantastic way of doing things. And ROCm 7 right now on the Rock the
Yeah.
build we have out there. It just the community is so passionate and so smart these days. It's impressive what they're able to do. It's beyond anything I'd be able to do. That's for sure.
Yeah, I can say the same. I mean, I'm just again, like I told you before, I'm just a regular guy that loves to talk about tech. I'm kind of an enthusiast on that regard. So yeah, community nowadays is just crazy. It's just crazy what people can
For
do
sure.
actually. So now we have the 14th question from AMK Zaku. Hello Fabio, my question is how many games will support FSR Redstone when it launches? Also, I am curious if AMD could create something similar to MS Afterburner. Now this one, the final one, I'll answer myself. Well, I mean, you have MS Afterburner inside the Adrenalin software. You can overclock, undervolt, and maybe maybe not as advanced as Afterburner, but way simpler and way easier to do. So you, in the easier side of things, you have
Yeah.
way more options. For example, if you go to MS Afterburner, you can't really undervolt unless you mess with the graphic. You can undervolt on the AMD side without the graphics, so it's simpler on that regard. As for the RTSS side of things, AMD also has the how should I call it? Now I'm missing the naming of the overlay. The overlay again.
Oh,
So AMD already has the overlay. So sometimes it doesn't work. Let's be honest. Sometimes it doesn't work. The overlay just doesn't just doesn't catch the FPS and so on. But it on a general side of things, it is there. Putting things on your side as well. FSR Redstone, how many games at launch?
So obviously, I can't say too much about that. You're going to hear a lot more for us later this year. So stay tuned. I think it'll be pretty exciting. And I think you're right about what's in the driver today. It does most of the features. I don't know why you would use Afterburner if there's specific features that are missing. Just I would say add them to chat, and the team can look at it.
Yeah, I use
But we've
Afterburner
tried. Do you?
all the
Yeah,
time.
I
Yeah,
don't use Afterburner.
just because of the RTSS overlay, and basically just to record the files for the benchmarks, basically the average FPS, 1% lows. But it's mostly because of RTSS, because you can just change it the way you want to in terms of
Okay.
overlaying. It's just much more malleable. But that's just about that. Yeah, I
So
would
it's
say.
about customization more
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, definitely. So as for the final questions, they are from Shredbird. And the first one is, when do you expect FSR4 to be available for Vulkan titles? This is a great question. What specific challenges are there in comparison to the implementation on DirectX?
I think it's just a different API, but it is something we're looking at. And me as a gamer, Indiana Jones was a fantastic game. I've cleared it, so I don't really. It's not really a high importance for me, but as a company, definitely you want to be able to support everything. So I think that's coming down, but I think FSR Redstone is going to be the major focus for the team, and other support like Vulkan is coming after that.
Okay, so the team is actually working now mostly on the FSR Redstone releases with the new features, and then they will go to the Vulkan release.
I think there's a lot more excitement for that, definitely, for the FSR from our users, but as a company, we want to make this a fantastic launch. So um, there's going to be a lot more news on that very soon.
Well, maybe one day I'll be there, seeing the launch live. Well, the second question is, a point of confusion I often see for gamers is how they configure frame limiting and VSync for a tear-free and low latency experience on VRR-enabled displays. Do you think something like a one-click VRR profile would be a viable option? Perhaps prioritize smoothness and prioritize low latency options would suffice.
So first of all, I think that's a really cool idea. And it'd be a great way to kind of merge different features together. I don't know the reason why we don't do it. Maybe some of these features are incompatible with each other or what, but I do like these one-click solutions. So it's something definitely I've sent over to the team to figure out.
Yeah, one of the things that I've seen recently more and more is that when you enable FreeSync, especially if we're talking about FreeSync Premium, you can go almost to the full range and you won't see any tearing. But if we're talking about frame generation, sometimes you need to enable VSync with the FreeSync, so VSync in-game, in order to not have any kind of tearing. And I saw that, for example, in Dying Light the Beast. Dying Light the Beast has one of the best things that I saw in games, and I believe that every single implementation should be like this. So you need to have an in-game frame limiter that allows you to limit the frames from frame generation.
In-game.
In-game. So I have
Okay.
the full game experience. I just finished it like today, a couple of hours ago, and I played all game with frame generation enabled. And I could do it because we have an in-game frame limiter that actually works with frame generation. So that's a great thing. And I believe that in this case, Shredbird is actually talking about VRR in that regard as well, because people don't really know if, do I have to use FreeSync with VSync? If I'm using FreeSync, do I need to enable VSync? If I'm using VSync, should I be enable FreeSync? And in this case scenario, since you have VRR, some people don't really know that, for example, you have FreeSync, okay, I have FreeSync, but they don't really know that they have a range. And that if
you just totally confused me right there with all your terms, but wow.
Sorry about that. I mean, for example, when you have FreeSync and your monitor has FreeSync, you have FreeSync enabled, so you have a range. The hertz will change in between a range, of course, usually like from 48. Let's say that you have a 144 hertz display. It's usually from 48 to 144, or like 35 to 144. Okay, so what happens is that FPS numbers, they have fluctuations.
Yep.
And sometimes they have spikes. And even when you're using something like VSync, you might have a spike, let's say, that goes above 144. So what I always advise people is that if you have a 144 hertz display, cap it like 2 or 3 hertz below, 2-3 FPS below. In order for you to, if you have those fluctuations, it won't really affect the experience and you'll still be tear-free. And I believe this is where shredbird is touching. So maybe just have like a profile where the profile will know that you have a 144 hertz display. As soon as you press VRR profile, it will immediately lock the frames to, let's say, 142 or 141, something like that maybe. But I guess that's the point.
It sounds easy enough, doesn't it?
Yeah, for people that don't really know how things work in a more technical way, it surely does. Yeah, it even suggests basically kind of two options: to have prioritize low latency or prioritize smoothness, like we have with AFMF now.
FMF, yeah.
But yeah, I guess that's it. There's not much more that we can answer about this, I guess.
Yeah, we would have to go back and just figure out why can't we do this, because it sounds like it's a pretty simple solution. It seems doable.
I mean, this is just like a more, I believe, a thing. This is
it's
just
a one-click.
Yeah, I mean, but this would just be a thing for really, really newbie persons, or real persons. I guess that I should say newbie persons, people, not persons, newbie people that go into the software, because almost anyone that goes into gaming, they know that they have that range, FreeSync, and so on. You should use Radeon Chill or frame rate target control or whatever. But yeah, how should we say this? This is just like a one-click solution for dummies, like those books that teach you things.
Well, no, we have these profiles. We have HyperRX. We have these eco modes. We have them built in, and they're meant to be these one-click solutions. So I don't see why we couldn't simply make this part of one of those, if not all of those.
With VRR, yeah, I believe that HyperRX in some case scenarios already uses chill to limit the FPS. Maybe it just doesn't limit the FPS according to your monitor, but
to your range, yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't really test that enough in order to speak of it. And the last question from Shredbird is, why is Adrenalin so slow to open sometimes, or require several clicks to open the first time? This problem seems to come and go intermittently, and I've experienced this myself sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't experienced this myself, but PCs are one of those things where it's probably happening to a lot more than it's happening to me. I would say definitely submit your bug via the tool, and the guys will start looking at it immediately. And if you keep doing, like, we're actively engaged in this, so if you've got any problems, whether it's this or others, that bug tool allow us to know what your hardware you're using, what your different software configurations are. It'll help them narrow down the case.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, basically, if you're hearing this, guys, what AMD is basically telling you is use the bug report tool. Like I told you on the How to Adrenalin settings, from this year, just use the bug report tool. If you're complaining but you don't really use the bug report tool, you're kind of part of the problem. But again, that's just my opinion. And yeah, I guess that's all for today's questions. But I would like to address that little Radeon card on the back of the image on the build, which is a Pro card. I can't really see if it is an Instinct one.
Maybe the one in my case?
Yeah.
I'm looking at different versions of ROCm right now on Windows. So it is a Radeon AI Pro. It's got 32 gigs, so for me it makes it a lot easier. I don't have to figure out what models to use.
9700.
Yep, R9700. It's a fantastic card.
By the way,
And
oh, sorry, go on, go on.
I was just gonna say, like, for you guys out there using any models, definitely having 16 gigs or more is makes it so much easier when running not only LLMs but also your image models, your image generation, which is what I like to dabble in right now. And video generation is the kind of the new craze right now.
Yeah, and since you are touching that topic of LLMs, I always thought to myself, what is the real application of LLMs for people like us, like normal people? I know the application regarding maybe
Yeah.
software development, but for regular folks like us.
Well, definitely coding is actually very interesting. I've been playing around with that recently. And I haven't coded in so long that I've totally forgotten how to do it, and it makes it so much easier. But even like students today are using this as an option, an alternative to Google. When you would just go searching the web, use AI, and it pulls all the latest relevant content for you. When you're writing materials, it can give you kind of different versions of if you wrote it in this way versus like you can even say write it in this tone, and LLMs are fantastic for that. And one of the reasons I've got this thing in there is there's now workflows where you can generate video with an LLM that kind of writes or talks about a topic, and you can have it looks like an avatar or a person giving a speech on a certain topic. And the LLM kind of naturally integrates that, and you can merge that in with voice analysis. So you give it a sample of your voice, and it can actually now start creating these videos. So LLMs are very interesting on kind of giving you different ways of saying things as well as integrating into other workflows to make something out of nothing, just out of text. So looking at different applications of how we can use those sort of workloads
Yeah,
going forward.
but I always think to myself, isn't the new AIs, the new intelligent or the new artificial intelligent beings, if we can call them that, or if we could call them that, aren't they making us dumber? That's what I talk to myself.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Every time there's new technology, it doesn't make people dumber. It makes them more effective, and you can increase your productivity, I think. Um, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, but I mean, you kind of stop thinking for yourself. That's one of the things that I see more and more nowadays. People just stop
Really?
thinking, yeah, for themselves. I mean, back in the day, we had Wikipedia at most. Like at most,
Yep.
we have those in Portugal. We call them Dicipedia, which maybe like Wikipedia, which is kind of a Wikipedia but in CD drives and so on. And we
Oh,
had to
okay.
go.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to go, and we had that information. If the information wasn't actually recent, you had to do more research. You had to go to the library. So you actually had to think. You kind of got the information, then you absorbed the information, and then you changed it or you molded it in your own way. And things are getting different because you can just go to the LLM. You just go, "This is the way I write." Now make
Yep.
me
You can
a
train it based
text
on how you write.
exactly.
Yep.
Make me a text the way I would have written it about this or that, and that's just. I believe that it is exciting, but kind of terrifying in a way. How things are evolving so fast in that regard. I mean,
You know what makes it interesting, right? And look, not no technology is ever going to get you 100% there. You're still going to need to go back, and you're still
yeah,
going to need to analyze it. But it allows you to do something else instead now.
yeah, but
Now you can focus more time testing,
I know.
and I think it just changes the amount of time you spend doing a certain task.
Yeah, yeah, on that regard. And again, in terms of development, in terms of productivity, I entirely understand. But there are some things that, for example, in terms of AI image creation or like video, in terms of video,
Mhm.
like with those face swaps and so on, I mean, I could be talking to you right now and you could be thinking it was me, but it wasn't. I mean, with all the voice models that we
That's
have,
true.
with all the face models that we have, I mean, I could be talking to you, but it wasn't actually you, and I wouldn't know it because of how advanced things are nowadays, and that's just impressive and again terrifying at the same time.
It's a bit of both. I can see that point for sure.
But again, yeah, I'm just going too profound on this. This wasn't really the topic. But yeah, I can see that card, and I believe that you have a 6950 XT there on the top. Maybe?
I think
6900?
that one might either 6950 or 6850. I
6800.
need to check the connections.
Yeah, one of those. Then you have a Radeon
There's
7 there.
Yeah, there's a Radiance 7. There's a Lisa Sue Edition 5700 XT.
Now that's cool.
It's very cool. So these are my cool cards. Some of these cards don't work. They're just shrouds. In fact, I'd say most of them are just shrouds. They're not really working, but I had a chance to get some pretty cool products there.
Yeah, I mean, you work there. You need to have that chance. Well, but yeah, I guess that's all for this video. Again, maybe this will happen in the future again, and if you guys are watching, maybe you can consider maybe supporting the channel in order to have the chance of making some questions to the guests. Thank you, Adam, very, very much for coming to the channel. You'll always be the first one here on this type of content.
Appreciate it.
So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
And if you want to say anything before just going out, just let us know if you have any message for AMD gamers that are looking into the future.
Oh, definitely, guys. I love the passion, the continued passion. I haven't seen a change in all the years I've been at AMD. The gamers have been the most passionate bunch, and it can be definitely very rewarding, and it can also be definitely humbling. And I really appreciate everyone who's actually tried and stuck with AMD, particularly with the latest Ryzen and Radeon products. I think if you haven't tried them already, you'll absolutely love them.
Thank you very much once again, guys. Thank you, Adam. And guys, see you in the next video. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.